let me say it's a good afternoon, and you're so welcome, Maureen. Doreen, I don't know why we keep baptizing you, Maureen, but you're so welcome to this Zoom meeting today. I feel I do not have the right words to sufficiently or adequately introduce you, but allow me give you the platform, introduce yourself, and then we shall pick it up from there. So over to you, Doreen.
Okay, no problem. Wow, this struggles have just gone through. I don't know.
I know, and I don't know what really happened. I've been testing the same, and it has eventually worked.
And it does. And please allow me to just have my video off. Kindly, I am requesting that.
It's okay. You had already explained previously.
Okay, so my name is Doreen Moraa. I am a HIV and AIDS advocate, and also a young woman living with HIV. It's been 29 years of me living with HIV. Just turned 29 last week. Okay. So, sorry?
It's okay. The floor is yours.
Okay. So, I'm the founder of I Am a Beautiful Story, which is an online digital initiative created at demystifying HIV and AIDS stigma and normalizing the HIV conversation, because ideally, most of the time we hear about numbers of people living with HIV, but we actually never get to see those people. All we hear mostly are rumors around it. And so I decided it's time we actually create a conversation and a change around how we view HIV, because 40 years later, we still have stigma in our communities. We still have a society that is full of misinformation. And it is sad that even if we're in 2021 with a lot of research, availability of treatment, we still have the same issues that we had in the early 2000s and in the 90s, when HIV was a new disease and we did not understand it. And I started I Am a Beautiful Story 6 years ago. And so far, I have been able to gain a huge following on my social media accounts. And also, while doing it, impacting lives, changing people's perspective about HIV, and basically just creating awareness. Because when we first start, I normally use my photos, my story to go with it, my lived experience, because I want people to know that World AIDS Day is not just 1st December for people living with HIV. It's actually a day for us.
Yes.
So that is why I started the whole initiative. And so far I have, I recently was selected by the International AIDS Society as one of the young leaders who are developing a digital tool called the Youth Hub, to be able to give young people a platform, especially young people engaged in the HIV response, to give them a platform on where they can get research, learn how to write abstracts, learn on what is happening, what is new, and basically get connected to mentors in the HIV response. Okay. And if you have a suggestion, we have a tool in the Youth Hub called the suggestion box. So you can basically just get in there and what is it called? And say, I need to see this on the Youth Hub because I don't see it, and I was doing my research around this. We have as long as you're a young leader in the HIV response below the age of 30, you're eligible to join the Youth Hub and basically just get more knowledgeable. It's like we are turning HIV and AIDS advocates and activists into a more professional, more informed, and better equipped young people, so that even as we are fighting the HIV and AIDS response, we are also doing it when we are well equipped. And if you want funding, you can get funding opportunities, if you want to know how to write a funding opportunity, because I saw when COVID first started, there was a lot of funding around the HIV response and COVID-19, but a lot of young people missed those opportunities because most of them did not know the hang of writing a proper funding request.
Okay.
So this is actually what we're trying to bring out there, that you are a young leader, you have been recognized, but we also want you to be well equipped.
Well equipped, yeah, that is true. Now, Doreen, thank you so much for that, and thank you for the Youth Hub initiative. That is honestly something that our youth need, especially, I being the founder of Ella Foundation Uganda, and my PR is actually online also attending. Dixon, you're welcome. We normally advocate, ours is especially, we are so concerned about the girl child because the girl child is basically the mother of tomorrow, the mother of the nation. Basically, the girl child is the Sarah, the wife to Abraham, who is the mother of the nation. So we keep advocating for the girls because we know the girls will definitely take up the mantle to address issues within their homes, within society. So that said, you as a young lady, beautiful young lady, living positively, what would you advise the girl child? What would you have to say to the girl child who has just contracted this virus and doesn't know how to go about it? How would you advise them to go about it? And then, is HIV the same as AIDS? Because I don't think many of us even know the difference. Is HIV the same as AIDS? Please explain to us.
Okay, let me start by answering the HIV being the same as AIDS question. Let me start with that one, because that is something I came to realize last year, that a lot of people, not even just young people, a lot of people do not know the difference between HIV and AIDS. And HIV is basically a virus.
Okay.
And being a virus, it attacks the body's immune system. If HIV is not treated, it can lead to AIDS. So HIV is basically the human immunodeficiency virus. What it does is attack the body's immune system, leaving you exposed to opportunistic infections that actually weaken your body system. And most times people say that HIV, what are the symptoms of HIV? Yeah, of course there are symptoms, but most times I would like to think that HIV does not, as a virus, have specific symptoms that you can pin to it. Why I say this is because once your immune system is exposed to all these opportunistic infections, what you're going to feel most of the time are the symptoms of the opportunistic infection that has attacked you.
Okay.
So basically, of course, you will feel, as your immunity is weakening, you will definitely feel things. You will definitely experience things. But most times it is the what is it called? The symptoms of these opportunistic infections that affect you. So you can get TB and you start the night sweats and the losing of weight. You cannot attribute that to HIV because that is ideally a symptom of TB. So most of the time, when you try and Google, you find all these symptoms, and people come to me panicking and telling me, I am losing weight, I have lymph nodes, I have I don't know what, and you tell them you don't have HIV, because if you had it, HIV has a very long incubation period in the body.
Okay.
And you can actually have HIV in your body for a very long time before you start experiencing the symptoms. So some people finish 2-3 years, some finish 10 to 15 years. With HIV in their body, they're living with it, they're not on treatment, they're not on anything. The only problem with this is it progresses to AIDS, which is now the disease.
Okay.
So there is no effective cure for AIDS. And once you get HIV, because it's the first virus that you're exposed to, then have it for the rest of your life. But HIV is manageable because you can actually be on treatment and take treatment which are called ARVs. We don't have also a cure for for HIV, but it is manageable through antiretrovirals, which are in the ART program. So ART is basically the antiretroviral therapy. So the therapy part, which is the ART, is basically your wellness, your nutrition, how you manage stress, among other things. It is basic. That is why it's called ART, and that is why the ART and ARVs are two different things.
Okay.
So there's the therapy. Sorry?
I'm saying today you're schooling me too.
Yeah. So the therapy perspective is basically like I used to like the HIV response earlier, like in 2005 when I started my ARVs. The therapy perspective used to play a very, very huge role, because you will finish taking your ARVs and then they will tell you, now go to a support group, go to a counselor, talk to this counselor. And it was very holistic, that I liked it so much, because at least you will not leave the hospital feeling lost. So nowadays, as donor funding went down and all that, now has come down. Now it is just ARVs, you go home. So if you have an issue, if you are dealing with struggling with denial, with acceptance, with your adherence, nobody will notice until maybe your viral load goes up. So HIV is very manageable. Sorry?
What is the viral load?
The viral load is the amount of, I don't know whether to say the amount of virus, because you see, the viral load is almost the hardest thing to explain in very simple terms.
So it's literally the amount of the virus in your system.
It is the amount of the virus in the body.
Okay.
And that in this case, I mean the HIV virus.
Yes.
So once the virus gets into your body and you're infected and it's at work, because the HIV virus, even though it has a long incubation period in the body, it is a very active virus and it mutates as much as it wants. That is why the problem we have with viruses is they're smart. They have, it's like viruses have brains. So if it is in your body, you have a different strain. You know, it's like a variant. Let me use the current one that everybody else is using. It's like a variant. So we have different variants of HIV in different people's bodies. And sometimes it even differs regionally, because and we also have two types of HIV, by the way. We have HIV-1 and HIV-2. HIV-1 is what is the most common one, and the one very visible in East Africa, Central Africa, and the rest of the world. HIV-2, however, has regionally selected itself to most of the time West Africa. They say it's less infectious as compared to HIV-1, but it does not have a longer incubation period as the HIV-1. Yeah. But now with the viral load, you can only know your viral load by taking a viral load test.
Okay. And how do you conduct that?
How you conduct that at the lab. For people living with HIV, you are supposed to have your blood drawn after every 6 months. Okay. Or if you're a stable patient, after every year, you're supposed to do a viral load test, so that you actually get to see how many copies of the virus are active in your body. So because how the body does this is, the virus itself is like a photocopying system. So the minute it is at work, it makes copies of itself and it progresses quickly. So if you have, once you're on effective treatment, you are ideally supposed to have 0. Okay. 0 means you're a stable patient, you're adhering to your ARVs, and you are basically following the antiretroviral therapy.
Okay. So how best can you advise a young mother who's just realized that she's pregnant and she's HIV positive? How best can you advise her to keep her child in order to make, at least we've been told that one can give birth to a child who's HIV negative even if they're HIV positive. So what advice would you give such a mother in order to keep her safe from child, and as well as also keeping herself healthy. And secondly, how do you get to the undetectable stage?
Okay, so unlike in the 90s when our mothers gave birth to us, in 2021, we are very privileged to have treatment and to have something called prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is ideally treatment that prevents HIV. So what happens when a mother becomes HIV positive? So as a woman, you're probably it is a must. This is a must in most, especially in my country, Kenya. I don't know if Uganda it's the same thing, but it is mandatory for you as a pregnant woman to test for HIV.
Okay. Yes, it's actually the same for Uganda. I believe
it's
so.
The same for you. So I'm thinking,
yes,
because it's a WHO guideline, so I'm thinking it's universal.
Yeah, it should be universal, except for the fact that the men usually run away from that. So whereas the mother finds out, this teen mother or the mothers, the women generally find out they're HIV positive. They have their blood drawn for testing, easy testing. The men are usually cowards when it comes to testing themselves. And yet they don't know by testing themselves, they keep their partners safe in the process. Okay.
Very true, but now, unfortunately, the other day, before I finish answering this question, the other day I learned that there can be father to mother to child HIV transmission.
Oh,
it's like if the mother is pregnant, and then probably on the first trimester or maybe the second trimester, they are HIV negative, but along the way, the father contracts the virus, or maybe by the time the mother is pregnant, the father is on his window period, which is 3 months. So if they continue to have unprotected sex, because most people in marriages do not use condoms, then the father can actually infect the mother during pregnancy, and then the mother passes it on to the child. So that is why it's very ideal that with every other time you're doing the test, you need to have your partner there.
That is actually so true. So in that process, when a mother conceives, assuming the father, the husband or the father had intercourse with this woman, they didn't know they were HIV. He didn't know he was HIV positive. He contracted it within that window that we talked about. Yeah. Is it easily detectable in the fetus too, or before honestly the time that the woman gives birth? Is it detectable by then?
Now, this is where it gets interesting, because depending with what time the mom has tested positive, some women actually end up testing positive during breastfeeding, which is a very devastating time. But then depending, because we know that mother to child transmission happens in 3 ways: during conception, during birth, and during breastfeeding. So most of the time, when this mother finds out along the way, they are advised to start treatment immediately, because with the treatment we have, you can actually become virally suppressed from at least 3 to 6 months, depending with how you are taking your ARVs. But now, how do pregnant women living with HIV avoid passing HIV to their children? Before I come back into this other whole thing. First of all, you're tested. There is a program called PMTCT, which is prevention of mother to child. But the WHO is recommending now that most countries move to elimination of mother to child, so that we eliminate the whole process. It's actually it's very practical. It's just that sometimes with the healthcare systems we have in our countries, it becomes a little bit hard. But elimination of mother to child is very possible. So the mother is put on ARVs, and they start their ARVs with immediate effect, and they are taken through the PMTCT program. And they are actually, the good thing about the PMTCT.
Doreen, you're off?
Around how to take care of your baby, because now you are giving birth, or rather you are carrying what we call a highly exposed infant, which means this infant is basically exposed with HIV from you. So they might be born with HIV or not. But if you are undetectable, or you have something we call an undetectable viral load, you cannot pass HIV to your infant. After birth, immediately the child is born, they are put on prophylaxis. They're given their first dose of prophylaxis. The current regimen is nevirapine. And that is what most of these children are given. They're given a combination of Septrin and nevirapine syrup, where they take they're supposed to take this medication for 1.5 years, but this medication sometimes just disappears. I am telling you the truth of what is happening on the ground.
I understand. I don't think what is happening in Kenya is more different from what is happening in Uganda here too. So yeah, the possibility of medication disappearing.
Exactly, it disappears. So you don't have the privilege of having the child on prophylaxis for the whole for the whole 1.5 years. But then for the first 6 months, at least one of the things that I commend them for is that for the first 6 months, the child is always on prophylaxis. And during these first 6 months, and the child is always on prophylaxis, then this child is able to, if the child is on prophylaxis and you are breastfeeding exclusively, no water, no food, nothing, just the prophylaxis, Septrin syrup, and the breast milk. After 6 months, you are now allowed to start giving the child very soft, very, very soft, what is it called? Very soft, solid foods, but they have to be extremely soft. Why I'm saying this is because the child's throat, or rather digestive system, is yet to be fully developed. In that, if you give them very hard food, it can actually scar their throat, and that in turn can ensure that while you're breastfeeding the child or feeding the child, somehow they get an HIV infection. So that is why some women are told you can stop breastfeeding at 6 months if you don't want to continue because of the risks involved. Some are told you can go on till 1.5 years, but but for you to be able to do the whole 1.5 years, you need the prophylaxis. Now, most times when the prophylaxis is not there, then women are given alternative methods. But that is how basically you can prevent your child from getting HIV. So once they turn 1.5 years or 2 years, depending with the clinic, because also I noticed that different donors and different funders have a different time period. Some is 1.5, some is 2 years. They are now tested, and along the way, there are tests being done on this child to prove that. And remember, infants are not tested using the PCR on their finger or any blood drawn from their veins. They're tested on their foot. The toe, the big toe, is the one that is.
My dear, you've really schooled me today. That one I didn't know.
It is the toe that is actually tested, because the rest of the body will show that the child is HIV reactive.
Wow.
So so after these 2 years, let's put it at 2 years. After the 2 years, the child is now tested, the very last test, and then they now graduate. Nowadays, we are even having facilities who are graduating the highly exposed infants to now become HIV free. And we can get a HIV free generation, but we also need to continue advocating for the government to ensure that as women, we need to stop the tap of new HIV infections, because we are also producing lives, and we don't want these lives living with HIV. So we can end mother-to-child transmission, but we also need support, especially on the prophylaxis part, because that one, it's an ongoing conversation.
It's so what definitely is one conversation that I am definitely going to follow up on too, because you've schooled me a lot, definitely.
It is actually, it is. So what was I saying? I was saying
what is being undetectable, that is where we're at.
So for you to be undetectable, you have to take your ARVs. So this is where now the ART comes in, antiretrovirals plus the therapy. So antiretrovirals are basically your drugs, the treatment you are on, whether you're on first line, second line, or third line. Those are it's just the medication, just different levels. But the current first line medication that we have, that is TLD combination, it's a combination treatment of 3 drugs, which is tenofovir, lamivudine, and dolutegravir. Dolutegravir being the one that is the highest, with the highest dose, and some people even call the medication DTG instead of TLD. The TLD drug is they say that so far it is the best invention of ARVs that they have come up with, the scientists, and it is basically meant to reduce the viral load faster.
Okay.
So it's like accelerates the VL to a place where you can reach 0. Currently, the recommended viral load copies by the WHO, these are new guidelines, by WHO is 50. So if you have anything between 0 to 50 copies, then you can be declared undetectable.
Wow.
Anything below 1,000 copies, anything below 400 copies is now what we call LDL, or rather low detectable levels.
Okay.
Anything below 1,000 is just, it's not undetectable, but you are okay, but you can work on it. You can work on it.
With medication, with continuous medication.
Anything above 1,000, you are very detectable. You need to figure out what is happening, and you need to start taking your medication seriously. And so that you can try and avoid opportunistic infections, because some of the opportunistic infections are the ones that actually kill people living with HIV. So the AIDS-related deaths are basically about the opportunistic infections. So the most killer ones are meningitis, pneumonia, TB. TB is I think TB, I should have started with TB.
TB is the most common.
It's the most common one. It's like the worst of them all, because it takes a lot of time to be cleared, and its treatment is very hectic, and people give up along the way. So TB, meningitis, pneumonia, typhoid. Sometimes you can be exposed to malaria that just doesn't make sense because of your immune system. The problem is, as long as your immunity is low, everything can attack you. Even a common cold can just take time to clear out of your system. Okay. So once you're undetectable, you have a better chance of fighting. First of all, when you are undetectable, you gain something where, like you become healthy. You are now a healthy patient. And second of all, you cannot transmit HIV sexually if you are undetectable.
I understand that. Now, Doreen, allow me to ask.
Yeah.
What happens? Because I'm told by you being undetectable, it means the virus is basically stuck within the bone marrow. Is that the case? It's inside the bone marrow. If you are undetectable, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're undetectable, it means the virus is not within your system, but rather within the bone marrows especially. Is that true?
I kind of want to say no. Because what actually happens is, if you're undetectable, then the ARVs have reduced your HIV to small quantities that sometimes it cannot be detected using the standard blood tests. Even the self-test, sometimes, especially the oral quick test, takes a little bit of time to pick it up.
Okay.
So the thing is, what you have done actually, the HIV is still there. It's just that now it's not active. So it's not duplicating itself. It's not mutating. It's like you have cornered it somewhere, and it's just in the system. It's definitely in your blood, because if you do a blood test, then it's going to show that you're HIV positive. But what happens is with HIV, as I said, it's a smart virus. And it always tries to come out and fight. Now you see it's fighting, but then the medication is basically like coating the virus. It has coated itself on all the parts of the virus in your system and even in your bone marrow. You know, part of the reason why we have not been able to get a cure for HIV is how easy HIV hides itself in our systems.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's, as I said, it's a smart virus. It knows what it's doing.
Just
so
like
it is everywhere.
like all viruses. Corona
Like all viruses.
Corona being the worst at the moment.
Corona is the worst, honestly. It is the worst.
So
you see, with that, it means that whether you are undetectable or not, the HIV antibodies will always be in your blood system and everywhere else.
Okay.
But what actually happens is when you are undetectable, then picking the standard blood tests might not be able to pick up the antibodies easily as compared to if you do the PCR test and the ELISA test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then can a pap smear detect HIV? If I went for a pap smear, can it easily detect HIV?
No, a pap smear cannot detect HIV. A pap smear can only detect any cancerous cells or any abnormal cells, but it cannot detect HIV because HIV is ideally in your blood. But it's good you brought about the pap smear because women living with HIV should do pap smears yearly because they are highly exposed to cervical cancer. So I hope young girls hear this and take this up to do cervical cancer screening yearly, because for women who are not living with HIV, they are advised to do it after every 3 years. For women living with HIV, they are advised to do it after every year because we are ideally exposed to the HPV virus, which causes cervical cancer because of our low immune system. Yeah.
So do the symptoms differ, the HIV symptoms, do they differ between men and women? Or they are the same? Do we experience the same symptoms? Or the magnitude?
I feel we experience the same symptoms when it comes to living with HIV between men and women. It's just that I don't know why, or rather, I don't know if there is a research that has been done around this when it comes to men and women living with HIV. But for men, sometimes their HIV takes a little bit of time before it, if they're not on treatment, that is, before it weakens them as compared to women. Because for women, the symptoms can be seen earlier, they can start experiencing the opportunistic infections earlier. But for men, it takes a little bit of time. I don't know whether in Uganda you have this, but in Kenya, way back before we understood what HIV was, we used to have people who were labeled as carriers, people who have HIV, but no symptoms are seen, nothing is happening to their body, they just look normal, but they have HIV, and people used to call them carriers. But they were not carriers, they were just HIV positive. It's just that the mutation in their body was taking a longer time than anybody else. But most of the time it used to be men. So I don't understand whether I don't know whether there is a research about that, but I feel that probably there is something there.
There should be something. I think it depends on one's general body immunity because it attacks, this is my assumption, because it attacks the immune system. So I think the weaker the weaker one's immune system, the more it will attack you aggressively as opposed to the reverse. That is just my assumption. There was
me too, because I've always found it what is it called? Very intriguing that there are things that we just don't understand about HIV.
It's a lesson now. What has happened? What has happened during these COVID times? What are the challenges as you, one person living positively and living undetectable life? What are the challenges that you faced since the outbreak of COVID, the lockdown? What are the shortcomings of this pandemic as far as HIV/AIDS is concerned, is related, at least in Kenya, your experience personally?
One is the lack of human touch. The thing about having terminally illnesses is most times you need the psychosocial support. And psychosocial support is what keeps you going. It's now part of the ART, now the therapy part. And without psychosocial support, you feel most of the time it's like you're battling this thing alone. So when they were saying, stay home, stay safe, I felt like home was not a safe space for people living with HIV. Why I'm saying this is, apart from the fact that the psychosocial aspect was lacking, there is also the issue of people living with HIV not being able, some of them have not disclosed their HIV status. So some of these people are taking ARVs in secrecy for years, actually. So when you tell them to stay home, and you know how African setups are and the lack of privacy.
Yeah, I understand. Sure.
Let me tell you that in the last 1 year, I have gotten a lot of people sending me containers of ARVs, pills, like telling me, is this an ARV? Is this an ARV? You see, most of them found out because now they had to stay home together.
Wow.
And now you are noticing someone else's routine, and you're like, why does this person keep disappearing? What is this they keep drinking every 9 p.m., you know, or every 9 a.m.? Something does not make sense. And so being curious people, it exposed a lot of people living with HIV who are not yet at that point of disclosing the HIV status.
I understand. So
there is the nutrition aspect where people have actually lacked food. When I say nutrition, I don't mean that I don't know whether in Uganda you're given it the TB, the porridge given to TB patients.
My dear, we are still hustling to get rations even.
I mean the food, because a lot of people lacked food due to the lack of income.
Yes, true.
And it definitely took a toll on very many people living with HIV, because sometimes you ask yourself, do I really need this medication today, or I just sleep hungry? Of course, organizations came up with food baskets, care packages, but they were not sustainable because
they're not sufficient, honestly.
Because still COVID is going on, and still the challenges are there, and the lockdowns are happening, and the cessation of movement and curfews. So you can't really tell people that there are people who are still struggling with the nutrition aspect, and some people have now stopped taking the ARVs altogether because they can't handle both. There is now the issue of, as we had huge drug shortages. So we went from multi-month drug dispensing to 2 weeks drug dispensing.
Wow.
The problem we have with that is not the 2 weeks. It is the fact that hospitals were clearly marked as red COVID-19. And now people living, the first time when COVID started, everybody was saying anybody with an underlying health condition is very eligible to getting COVID-19. Which means they say, and in fact, people living with HIV were named on top of that list, that if you get HIV and if you get COVID and you're living with HIV, you are most likely to die.
Wow.
So you see, this created panic. So how am I going to the hospital to get my medication if it is a place I can get COVID, and if I get COVID, I might die? So you see, it is basically, it's like you're being given 2 death sentences, like the one you were given when you were first diagnosed with HIV, and then now you're given another one of COVID. So it is for you to stay safe. And
those are actually 3 sentences in one.
Exactly. So it is so hard, and now you don't know what to do. So you have to make that choice, and most people made the choice of not going to hospital altogether. Of course, there were some community activists and advocates delivering the medication to them. But the sad part about Kenya is a lot of people living with HIV are living with it in secrecy. So even the community health worker, the community volunteer is unable to deliver the medication to their homes. Because if they deliver the medication, then people will start questioning.
They'll start questioning, yeah.
So they will know. And then there is the issue of confidentiality and privacy. You know, you can tell someone, I am taking ARVs to this person. You know, you're telling it as juicy gossip, but then it is juicy gossip that is not really, that is also exposing this person's HIV status. Because it becomes so hard. So the sad part is the stigma and the inequalities of people living with HIV was has actually been exposed during these times of COVID more than it ever has.
Honestly, understandably. So, Doreen, today I am not actually even interrupting you a lot because this basket of information that you're giving is honestly so rich, and we cannot actually exhaustively discuss it in one meeting. But I'm happy that at least we are sharing a bit. I'm still learning a lot about HIV/AIDS. It's as though I've never even learned about HIV/AIDS, honestly. That is why I am literally silent. Okay. But for the benefit, at least, especially for the young mothers out there, how do they overcome stigma? What should they do? What are the necessary support groups that you feel they should join to make them come out? You know, when you come out freely and say, I am positive, and you leave it in the open, you actually, it's the best and most forward step to me. That is what I feel towards healing. Mentally, physically, health-wise, in whatever aspect. That is the very first step. What would you advise these young mothers? You've lived, you're living and walking that journey, walking that talk. So you're the best person to advise. Assuming a young mother out there found out, yes, she's HIV positive. Leave alone even a young mother. We've had a number of girls of late actually engaging in cross-generational sex, most especially as a way of having at least some source of income. For them, some of them have become young leaders, the young heads of their families. So the best way to fend for their families is through basically selling themselves in engaging in sex. What would you advise such a young mother out there who is engaging in sex, very well known there's HIV/AIDS? What are the dangers? How can she protect herself? That is number one. Then for those ones who have found themselves to be positive, how best can they come out of that and live positively but healthy?
Honestly, I can tell you one thing. As a young mother, you will be, and you have been exposed to HIV, and you've just found out that you're living with HIV. Sometimes I feel like mothers, or rather young mothers living with HIV, are not given the time to accept. You know, unlike us, where you find out you're HIV positive, you get into shock, you get into denial, you panic, you do all of these things, and then you basically now reach that point of acceptance and start taking your medication. With mothers, it's different, because you find out when you're pregnant, you have to start your medication because of the child, and nobody gives you the time to be in shock and in denial and all that. It's like a deep dive for you. And that is a sad reality. But now this is where you need a strong mental health system, one for you as a person. And I'm telling you this for you as a person, because sometimes when you will need the friends, the relatives, somebody to hold your hand, they might not be there. So for you as a person, you must be able to hold forth and say, you know what, I can do this, because now it is not just for you, but also for the baby. Two, you need a psychosocial support. We have things called, people called mentor mothers and community health volunteers, and also HIV and AIDS advocates who are living publicly with HIV. These are your go-to people. Sometimes they might not be there with you physically. They might be a stranger on the internet. It might be you're going through Doreen's social media and you see all these posts. Find a way of relating to those posts positively, in that it is your life. And if Doreen has done this life for 29 years and she has never been HIV negative any day of her life, I can also do this for more than 29 years. Let's challenge yourself that you have to be very strong at this time. I know mothers face postpartum depression, and with the HIV involved, it might just go overboard, but always strive to be strong. And if you need help, seek it. Ask for it. If you have to go, it's okay not to be okay. It is very okay not to be okay. So go to the hospital and tell them, I can't handle this. You know, I have a friend of mine who got a baby, and she was telling me, honestly, there are times I looked at my child and I was like, why did I have to give birth to this child? I am not a bad person. It is just that now they have to take medication. for them to be prevented from HIV? Why can't they be a normal infant like every other infant? You see, those questions will come. You are not a bad person. You are not a bad mother. You are just a human being. So seek help, go to the health facility, tell them, hey, I need help on this and that sector. I am struggling to accept my status, to be on treatment, and to also administer treatment to my child. That is where mentor mothers come in. They hold your hand until you're stable enough to be strong for the two of you, both you and the child.
Wow.
Also, acceptance is an everyday job. Nobody will wake up and accept their status and they're like, yay, hooray, we have accepted, everything is fine. It does not work like that.
No,
it is an everyday job. It is every day. It's a journey. There are days you wake up strong and you don't mind living with HIV. There are days you wake up and you don't even want to take your ARVs. You are not a bad person. You're just a human being. So always try to tell yourself it's part of the journey. You can do this. And you can always try and find things that can affirm you that you are doing the right thing. You're just a human being. You are a human being. Remember, after all is said and done, remember you're a human being. And it's okay to feel how you're feeling. And it's okay to experience what you're experiencing, because at the end of the day, you're just human being. And you're reacting like a human being.
I understand. Thank you so much, Doreen, for that. Honestly, today I'm learning a lot from you. I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to ask too much, but still I have to talk just a little bit, because the masses out there on the platform, we may not be many, but definitely this is going to be aired on social media, on all social media platforms, so people can learn from this thereafter. So do you think, Doreen, as an advocate, and someone living HIV positive, do you think the government of Kenya, because I believe the government of Kenya is literally the same as that of Uganda, do you think we have drawn our attention away from HIV/AIDS and totally thrown all our energies onto COVID-19, thereby neglecting all other diseases and HIV/AIDS being one of them? Medication has gone down. Services regarding social cycle help has gone down. Talk about it. Do you think the government has totally abandoned other sectors, especially like that of HIV/AIDS, and vented all their energies onto what? Onto COVID-19? Do you think that is the case in Kenya? Do you think that is what has happened?
Actually, not just Kenyan and Ugandan governments. I think it's the whole world. They have abandoned HIV, and recently during the IAS 2021, most people were complaining that we feel that the governments and the donors and everybody else has just abandoned HIV altogether. And all of the efforts, the money, the resources, everything is now being channeled to COVID-19. And people are even wondering, why is it that 40 years later, we have not even found a vaccine for HIV, and there are 38 million people worldwide living with HIV, but we have found a COVID-19 vaccine in record time of 2 years?
Is that even possible? Is it realistic?
Exactly. So you see why people are concerned that we have literally abandoned the HIV response. Like, you people are on your own, you can do your thing. It was nice knowing you. But now, these people are now left hanging and struggling. There are all these, there's no, the nevirapine syrup, which is prophylaxis for children, has been missing. We have had shortages of ARVs. We have had all these issues. Currently in Kenya, we have a crisis on viral load testing. There are no viral load testing kits. So imagine all that, because everybody is channeled. We are trying to go back to the new normal, and by vaccinating people, by encouraging people to stay safe, by creating awareness, and then we have forgotten that there are people who have actually been living with HIV for over 3 decades, and they're here and they're with us, and now they're feeling abandoned. And some of them, not some of them, a good number of them have gotten COVID-19 along the way. Some have died, some have fought it, but clearly they have been left behind.
Actually, Doreen, on the issue of the COVID-19 vaccine, I was asking, what is the impact of the vaccine on someone who is HIV positive? Do you think
First
it's
of all, you need to
advisable for them even to take it because it's another virus onto another virus? What is its impact onto someone's system?
I feel that it is very advisable to take the COVID-19 vaccine because one, your immune system is already damaged. As much, even though you become undetectable, your immunity never goes back to being the immune system of a HIV negative person. Exactly. So as a person living with HIV, you need that support. My mom has taken both jabs. She's fully vaccinated. Of course, you do get to experience the side effects and all of the vaccine, not of the, the side effects of the vaccine. But I feel it's safe for people living with HIV to take the vaccine. But please, before you take the vaccine, the sad part is you have to disclose to your doctor, the person vaccinating you, that you
that is
are
actually
living.
key. Is it even wise to go take it before someone has found out your status? I think it's wise that one takes it from a source that has been following the medical history, or at least you should be carrying your medical history with you.
Take it from a source that knows your medical history, because if you take the jab just like that as a normal person, remember, you're not a normal person. That is one thing you have to know, that as a person living with HIV, sometimes you will find yourself you're allergic to medications that you never even knew you are allergic to. Yeah. So it's to get that doctor's touch and that doctor's advice, you need to disclose. So if you're uncomfortable with disclosing, I think you need to wait a little bit until you're very comfortable, or you go to a source where they know your health records and they know you have this medical history and an ARVs, and they actually get to counsel you and tell you, you need to take the vaccine because of A, B, and C, but after you have taken it, this is what you're supposed to do, so that you do not experience the side effects on a major scope, and how you can even be able to handle it. Because you might experience this. Some people have actually become very sick and even hospitalized because of the side effects of the vaccine.
We've had people who've taken the vaccine and they've collapsed and died shortly after.
Exactly. That is why you need to tell the doctor that I have this underlying health condition. I don't know if I am allergic to any particular actually, recently a doctor asked me, are you allergic to any medication? And I said no. But then I later on realized that no answer was not really correct, because I don't know. You see, the thing is, I don't know. Even though I've been on medication my whole life, I still don't know if I have allergies to any particular medication. So please, if you actually, not for people living with HIV alone, if you have any underlying condition, if you feel any particular way, and you have maybe not had like yourself tested or anything, this is time you test yourself for diabetes, for high blood pressure, anything, so that once, because the vaccine ideally introduces a mild COVID-19 into your system, and then trains the body on how to fight it. So you will need to tell your doctor you have an underlying health issue. And if you're unsure, then please take a test, because unfortunately for Africans, we only go to hospital when we are sick. When we are sick, we don't do checkups. So the other day, I saw this thread by South Africans saying that they're not going to take the vaccine because people they know have died. But then from what they were saying, I thought these people had underlying health conditions that probably had not even been diagnosed. So that is why they reacted to the vaccine. Remember, this is a new thing you're introducing into your system. And just if you are not ready for the vaccine, especially if you've never done a checkup in your life, don't go get it. Ensure that you get the time to go get a full body checkup before you can actually go and take the vaccine. I think that is something people need to advocate.
Yes, we need to advocate for that. But like you said, most of these checkups are actually very expensive. It's not something that is easily affordable. That is why people go to hospital only when they are sick, as opposed to having.
But okay, I don't know. Do you in Kenya we are supposed to have an NHIF that most of the time does not work really, but at least it tries, and it's mostly used for bills. It's mostly used to pay bills, but not used for anything else. So I think if we had now this is where our healthcare systems are now being exposed on how ineffective they are, because people will die. If we had working healthcare insurances, the national healthcare insurances rather, I think it would have been just proper that people will go and do all these tests and screens without really having to spend much.
Yeah, that is true.
So
unfortunately,
I think the problem is in our healthcare system. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And that is why I say, if you're not feeling confident enough with taking the vaccine, don't take it. But if you're feeling confident and you have the money or you have a health insurance cover, please go and get, first of all, get a comprehensive check. Because the sad part about the body is it can host diseases for a very long time before they actually weaken. Exactly.
Yeah. And so thank you so much for that one, Doreen. And what would you have to say in relation to sickle cells and HIV/AIDS? Still, I'm talking about young mothers. These are all experiences that have come across of late. The most painful experience is a young mother now who recently only found out that both her children are victims, are sickle cell victims. Actually, they are carrier. One is a sickler, one is a carrier. So have you had any cases relating to HIV/AIDS? As regards sickle cells, and how do you handle it? How would you advise such young mothers to handle it? Sickle cells is one issue altogether. HIV is also another thing altogether. So how does a young mother cope with that? Because those are all traumatizing experiences, honestly. I don't know how one can cope with it, but you're in the best position to answer that.
You see, that I don't know, but I've seen this. In East Africa, this is not very common, the issue of sickle cell, because it's not that it's not very common. It is us who do not get tested. As I said, we
test
really
when it's too late. We test when it's already too late.
When it's too, exactly. Because I have seen this, especially in Nigeria, Ghana, they take this issue of sickle cell very seriously, very seriously. Because I think there are some of the countries that are highly affected with people who have sickle cell. But for us, because it's not like a common thing, sometimes we don't even really take time to learn about sickle cell, to see what it does. And trust me, if you have a child who has sickle cell, it is overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. It's honestly so painful. I don't know what to do for this young mother. I feel her pain, you know. So
you can't really, I can't say that you can really do much, but one thing I can tell you is be there for her. Be there for her fully, in that she has the psychosocial support she needs. And sometimes she might even start blaming herself, but ideally it's not something you can control, because most diseases are not things you can control. So just be there for her and work with her through this journey, because now she's going through 2 health journeys. And in both of them, she needs your help. She needs you to be there for her. And she basically just needs a friend. So be her friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doreen. I have a lot. I'm also feeling sorry that, yes, you came in, we started late because of the technical glitches. And I know you're also tired. I really want to let you go, but I still feel there's a lot we need to share from each other. So we are overall, before we close. I would like you to have your rest. I don't want to tire you too.
Okay.
By the way, you're very inspirational lady. And a belated happy birthday, by the way. Your birthday is on the 8th, right?
Yeah, it was on the 8th. So it's like how many days?
So mine was on the 7th. Yours was on the 8th. So
wow. So it's
so a belated happy birthday. And as we wind up, please, what would you like to share with us? What would you like to tell our boys? What would you like to tell our men? And what is HIV/AIDS as regards child marriages? Oh my God. What experiences have you had? What experiences have you had? What experiences have you had with child mothers engaged in child marriages? Normally families force their girls, their daughters, to get married to these older men as a source of income to their families. So definitely this child goes into a marriage. In most cases, she's HIV negative. You'll find a gentleman with a virus. So how do you, how, I don't know whether you've encountered any of those girls, and how are they coping in their marriages? Do they easily access all the services that they're supposed to access in terms of their health? How do they cope with being child mothers, and yet they're also HIV positive, sometimes unknowingly? And in most cases, such men would not want to take these girls, these child mothers, to hospital, to recognized hospitals to give birth from, meaning they cannot actually tell their health status, whether they are positive or not. So most cases they will deliver traditionally. Unfortunately, I don't know whether you've experienced such. I don't know whether you've come across children of that nature, and how are they coping in those foods?
Let me tell you, we are currently having a crisis of teenage pregnancies. We have teenage mothers from the age of 12. It is a very, very sad reality. And most of these teenage pregnancies have actually been spiked during the COVID-19 time, especially that time when a lot of, when the schools were closed and the children were home. And
they're still home, by the way. In Uganda, we are still home.
As we have gone back to school, so you see how unfortunate it is.
Very unfortunate.
So, but now they have gone back to school where they're pregnant. Of course, we have a return to school pregnancy program, but why do we even need that? Because these are teenagers. They need to be in school studying, not being mothers. Because have we considered the psychosocial support, the psychological effect on this child? Because this is a child, whether a teenager or not, this is a child. And imagine them having to deal with being a new mother, a new teenage mother, and then having to deal with being HIV positive. So this is a 12-year-old who was not born with HIV, who has just, sorry?
I'm saying, it's imagine being a teenage mother, you're HIV positive, and you're married, you're a young wife.
And you're a young wife. So imagine all of those things all together. So you have basically stopped being a child. You are now being thrown straight into womanhood. And I know women who are the age of 30 and they still battle the postpartum depression, or 35, you see? So what is happening in this young child's head? And as much as we have all of these programs and initiatives, I actually feel that we are missing something. It's like we are missing a part where we need people who will walk with them the journey, people who have been there. You know, for us, we can talk because we feel like, no, at 12, she's too young. But then at 12, she's already pregnant. What can we do? We can't really change that situation.
She's been forced into
so now
womanhood.
We need people, we need champions among themselves. The only sad part is they are now married, which means that their husbands will not allow them to champion for anything. So it's like they are being treated in a way that is very unfair to their mental health and physical health. So the programs are there, people are being, they say if you're found marrying a child, if you're found impregnating a child, you will go to jail and all that. But I feel it's not enough, especially when it comes to the girl's part, because she needs more. The sad part is we have actually normalized transactional sex in our society. So by normalizing transactional sex, it means we don't mind these people living with HIV. We don't mind these young girls getting pregnant. There's a village we visited, and children from the age of, from class 6, they're pregnant with their second child. So now, how, you see? So and then ideally, according to the laws in Kenya, a child who is below the age of 18 cannot be put on any family planning option. It's illegal. So now, where do you put this child? She's already a mother. She is expecting her second child. Her parents are actually very poor. They're encouraging her to either get married or go and be involved in transactional sex because they need food on the table.
Yeah.
So you see how we have a gap there, and it's sad that these young women will grow up feeling that there was a gap that was left in their life, feeling that there are things that they never really got to fulfill in their lives because they were not understood. Because I feel like no matter how many campaigns we come up with, there needs to be somebody who has walked right into those shoes. They were pregnant at 13. They can explain that I was pregnant at 13, I had HIV, and this is how I actually came through. Because as we were born with HIV, we don't really understand the whole dynamic of you are negative and now you're positive at 13, and now you have to live with it for the rest of your life. You see how that doesn't, sometimes you cannot really fully relate. But then she's a young mother. At 13 years, she is not even programmed for motherhood. Actually, no woman is programmed for motherhood. Let's forget it. No woman is programmed for motherhood. It just comes and you have to accept it. But now this is a child. So how are they taking it? How are we helping them cope? Because the sad part about society is we are super judgmental. We will ask, why is she 13 and having sex? Yet she probably has very justifiable reasons for having sex at 13. But also as a society, we have,
the society, we have point fingers before it asks questions.
Exactly. And also we have refused to normalize talking about sexuality and sex to our children. So we assume that they do not know anything about sex. And then you realize that they know way much more than you do. So when they go it's honestly, because in Kenya, we are currently fighting for the comprehensive sex education in schools, but then the church is refusing to let that happen. And the parents are backing them up and saying, you cannot teach our children about sex, but the same children are getting pregnant at 13. So we need to strike a balance if we want to save a whole generation from new HIV infections, because I feel like we are going into another wave of new HIV infections. So if we need to save those children, we need to be there for them psychosocially. We need to stand with them. We need to stop judging them. And we also need comprehensive sex education in schools, in churches, in marketplaces, wherever it is, because these children are more knowledgeable than we actually think. They know about sex. They know about it. So why are we hiding? It's better we give them the correct information instead of them going to experiment. We had a case where this young girl was pregnant at 7 months and she was insisting she's not pregnant. So when she was asked why she's not pregnant, because the tests were done, it is there, she's pregnant. So she was insisting she does not have pregnancy. And so everybody was saying, why is she insisting? Yet we can really see this is she's pregnant. Yes, she's pregnant. So she said, because the boy I had sex with told me if we have sex while you're standing, I cannot get pregnant. I can only get pregnant if we had sex, if we were sleeping, and we did not sleep.
Wow.
So you see, there is that misinformation part. And remember that some of them are even getting pregnant among themselves.
Actually, sibling to sibling too. We've had a
cousin to cousin.
We've had enough of stories now. They've become very common.
It's better that we, like, you see, like right now, I don't know why we're not taking advantage of the fact that right now, this is now a conversation we're supposed to be having with them. And especially now that they're not going to school and they're home, and churches can actually take this role and responsibility up, because I feel like parents might never be able to take this responsibility.
No, but then the very first community, the very first persons actually talk to the children about sex and sexuality should be within the home. It's because of the way we've been brought up. The setup has been so bad in that we've not made these children our friends. You know, when you talk about sex and sexuality, it's not something that will come out of the blue. It has got to come from a point of comfort, a point of convenience, a point of friendship. Most of we parents have been, command and obey. That has been the rule. That is the dogma we are used to. But now, when it comes to talking about sex and sexuality, you find them being shying off from that. That is a conversation actually we were having last weekend. Sex and sexuality. I had another Zoom meeting here with a friend, and we're talking about sex and sexuality. You realize that their parents cannot talk about sex and sexuality, and yet it's something that we need to normalize if we are to solve a lot of these underlying issues within the community right now. If we are to talk about,
I know the home is the first stop, but sadly the home is
and churches. Unfortunately, even churches, depending on the church we are talking about, because we have conservative setups that cannot easily talk about sex and sexuality. You see, because in a recent research, still I was telling my guest last week, I found out that the highest number of girls who had conceived within one locality are particularly Catholic girls, as opposed to the Muslims. Okay, why? Now, one of the reasons being, a Muslim child is groomed from childhood while being taught. Actually, they groom their girls to be whites. So they kind of introduce the topic of sex and sexuality at an earlier age, because that is also a setup that marries off their girls a little early than the other setups. Okay. So yes, we need to normalize the conversation of sex and sexuality. We need to normalize the conversations around all our social behaviors. Okay. And then
but now you see, one of the things, and it's good that you brought in the aspect of religion, is for us, we have a superficial, and I mean Christians in whatever church we go to, we have a superficial idealism about marriage. For us, it's you go, you get married, you do a white wedding, you walk down the aisle, you get babies. Nobody tells you the whole process of getting babies.
No one.
You just there. You think that the marriage part is the white wedding, the singing, and beautiful day, but it's not. And that is why sometimes a lot of young women struggle to be in those marriages, while we have seen intimate partner violence and GBV coming out very strongly during this time. People are saying nowadays marriages are not lasting longer than 6 months, but it's probably because of how we are groomed. We are groomed to not seeing our parents even touching, holding hands, or even laughing with each other, but boom, they have 11 children. So we are never prepared for that. And then there's especially in Kenya, it's mostly the Muslims and the coastal girls who actually get married at a very young age. And most times for them, they are groomed to take care of homes, take care of their husbands, and also be sexual with their husbands. So they're taught by these older aunties at a very young age. And for them, you find them more open-minded about sex than another normal Christian girl in a normal home setup, who behave like they have never had sex in their life, but they have had multiple sexual partners. So you see, all of these things are not put out there with information. There are no nobody's volunteering this information. No, the aunties we have were groomed the same way we are groomed. Our grandmothers, it is the same. So it is basically a cycle. We have not normalized it totally. Like for us, it's go to school, get a career, get a husband. And then you go to school, you get a career, you get a husband, and then you realize that in your career,
what am I supposed to do with the husband also?
What am I supposed to do with the husband? You did not teach me what to do with the husband. And now we can't seem to see eye to eye. I want him, when he's done drinking his tea, to drop his cup in the sink. And for him, he was groomed differently, in that once you are done, you put your legs on top of the table, somebody will clear
come and pick. Yes, true.
So, do you know that last year there is a lady who stabbed her husband because the husband did not clear his table? Like she was dealing with a newborn baby, and then the husband finished drinking tea and left the cups there on top of the table. So the lady is like, why are you not taking your cup to the sink? And he's like, you're supposed to clear that. You see, we are just told get married, but we are not told what do we expect and how do we handle what we expect. That is why we have people living HIV in marriages and refusing to even disclose their HIV status
to their partners, to
their partner, because we are not taught how to communicate. Our parents do not communicate where we come from.
No, they don't.
So how do we expect to go into our marriages and communicate? That is why sometimes I feel like we're giving young women a lot of pressure to get into marriages, and then they reach there and realize that the reality of marriage is not what we see on movies.
It's not. It's usually not the case.
Totally. It's like adulthood. You have to experience everything for the first time. So, you see, and these are people married. Imagine you're married, you have more than 5 children, or you have 3 kids, and you've been in that marriage for over 10 years, and you have just not been able to tell your husband or your wife that I have this lifelong health condition that I have to host while being your wife and while taking care of your children and our home. So you can't disclose. So what you do is you take that medication. And yesterday I saw a very sad thread on my social media on women who have actually been infected with HIV in their marriages by their cheating partners, and they are unable to leave those marriages. Some of them are even experiencing GBV, but they just can't leave. And imagine this is an older woman. So now what is it doing to a 13, 14-year-old who is married to an older man, probably their 3rd or 4th wife, and they have to stay in that marriage and they're now living with HIV? Do you see how even older women
It's so traumatizing. It's so traumatizing. I don't know how to go. That's why I say today, let me let you talk, because honestly, these experiences are priceless. What your journey itself is a priceless one.
Yeah.
Now, trying to live through those footsteps and trying to see what somebody else going through, what you've gone through, but they even have other additions onto that.
Exactly.
Honestly, it's mind-boggling. Okay.
Let me tell you, the other day I said something in another meeting that the sad reality of living with HIV is that life does not spare you because you have HIV.
No.
It still throws its challenges at you, whether you have HIV or not. So you will always be dealing with different issues plus HIV, different issues plus HIV. And that is it. And sometimes people will say, but people live with HIV and they're okay. They are okay, yes, but are we sure they're okay?
Physically,
are we really sure they're okay?
No, you cannot be sure of that.
Exactly.
You cannot be sure of that.
I don't like the general assumption of HIV nowadays. It's like common cold. No, common cold clears in 7 days for an ideal person. HIV does not clear in 7 days. It's for the rest of your life. So some of these people are going through a lot of psychological issues. The mental health toll the mental health issue is taking a toll on people living with HIV because they don't know how to cope anymore. And as I said when we started, I miss those days when we had the antiretroviral therapy, because now we remove the therapy and it is just the antiretroviral. So now we don't have a choice. You are left with your own thoughts. We have young people struggling to get into relationships. We have young people struggling to find someone to date just because they cannot disclose the HIV status. So it's very sad, and I would like to encourage anyone struggling with acceptance, with disclosure. All of these things take time. It took me 23 years to actually now accept that this is my lived reality.
Wow. And congratulations on that. By the way, congratulations.
Sometimes
you are an inspiration.
Thank you so much. And it's not that easy to just accept that, hey, I'm living with HIV, that is it. Some people accept in 6 months, some in a year, some they take up to 10 to 15 years. If you have such kind of people in your space, give them time. It is a healing process. Healing is not a one-day job. It is a daily routine. It is a job. You get used to it. So give these young women, these young mothers who are trying to figure motherhood and living with HIV all together at once. That is a very huge role and responsibility. Please give them time to heal. Give them time to accept themselves. Don't start judging. Sometimes by bad luck, the child might end up contracting HIV. Don't make them feel worse than they already feel, because they already feel that they failed their child. So don't make them feel worse than that. Support them. If you see them struggle, even if you don't see them struggling, just talk to them, because some of them will be struggling silently. So talk to them and ask them, how are you doing? How are you doing? Do you need any help? Do you need someone to talk to? How is the baby doing? Are you coping? Because most of them are not coping. They're breaking down from the inside, but they can't, because when you are a mother, you're expected to be strong for the child.
It's true. That is
So
true.
unfortunately, sometimes if I am 13 or 14 or 15, I don't know how to be strong for myself and for the child, because even my mind is not fully developed to do that. So let us support them without shaming them. Let us be there for them. There's some of them are our younger.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Let's try and talk to them, talk some sense to them, because that is not. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
So please talk to them. Please encourage them to stay sane. Right now, it's encouraging each other to stay sane. So I think that is it from me.
Thank you.
Accept
so
yourself
much.
And love yourself unconditionally. Please love yourself unconditionally. So I truly appreciate the opportunity. And now I have to jump off because I have another meeting.
Wow, thank you so much. Like I said, someone wants to say something very briefly to you before you jump off. Dixon, over to you. Dixon?
Hello? Yes, hello?
Yes, please, over to you.
Hi, Dixon.
Hey, is everyone hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you loud and clear.
Wow, thank you very much. Today, I'm so blessed to be part of this meeting. I'm Dixon. I work with the Record TV and the Family Radio. I'm the PR for ERA Foundation. And I want to thank Doreen. For real, today I think I've learned a very big lesson. I kindly request Madam Grace, I think next time we invite more people, because many people have missed this. It's a lesson.
Actually, they were having they were coming online, except because we had technical glitches. Not a number of them signed out eventually. But nevertheless, the recording is good enough because we are going to share it in a number of other platforms.
That's good.
And secondly, we are going to have Doreen here whenever she can make time for us. So thank you for that one out.
Yeah, I'm so blessed, and I have some people here with me. Of course, Mr. Rumumba Joseph is in technical team, and Mr. Kayoza Charles. They have learned something. I think Doreen, you're a good example to people outside there. You know, there are people stranded, asking themselves what to do. Yeah. And I think now it's high time we should all come out and do something. We can change our society. You know, people are stranded. People have gone through COVID-19. We are still in lockdown. We are looking away of survival. So I think for your message, therefore, if we can keep it up, then it will yield something out. So Madam Grace, thank you for hosting this meeting. And Madam Doreen, one day, one time, we shall also have it on radio as well, or if possible on TV, so that we can share this message. For real, it's a big message. It's teaching someone outside. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dixon, for that. You'll have to fly her from Kenya to come to Uganda for you to host her.
For real, if she can make it, I will come her, because she's an example. You know what she tells?
She's living positive. She's undetectable.
Yeah, it's a true story. She's telling us what she has gone through.
Yes.
And there are other people who are like her, who have passed through the same situation. I have handled different people who has the same, but for her sake, I think she's different. She has met maybe some people and they have taught her they have advised her what to do. So I think she has to use the same.
Okay, Dixon, Doreen has got to run, so let's excuse her. So thank you so much for being on the platform. Send those members back there. I think that is Family Radio. Are you at Record or Family?
Yeah.
Where are you
at Family Radio.
At Family Record. Okay. Send them my regards. At least they know who Grace is. Send them my regards together with the entire management team. We shall be coming over to your platform also soon. Now, Doreen, you've honestly been an inspiration. We thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We've learned a lot. There is a lot to do with social psycho support that honestly need to offer out there. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot honestly on HIV/AIDS that I've not been knowledgeable about. We've learned a lot in terms of how do we stay connected? How do we keep going amidst all? Thank you so much. You've been awesome. You've been an awesome guest. Please extend our regards to the people back home and the entire team that you work with. Thank you for the good work in terms of advocacy. Your influence, honestly, back here, my family really appreciates your work. They've never met you, but I tell them she's my friend. So, so they look up to you a lot and they learn a lot from you. So they follow you, honestly, they follow you a lot on Twitter, especially. They follow you a lot there.
Tell them to, if they make time tonight, they can join a Twitter space that I'm hosting on just HIV. We're just talking about HIV.
Kindly share, you'll share with me the link or the details on my WhatsApp. So we can actually partake to all of us together. So thank you so much. You have a wonderful afternoon. You've been an awesome guest. Please, when we call on you again, please be willing to come on board. We know you're very, very tight, but thank you. It's been a good afternoon.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye. I truly, truly appreciated being here.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good afternoon.